Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Captain, and today I'm going to be reviewing and telling you about this role-playing game, Twilight 2000, published by Free League Publishing. This is the box set that you can buy for Twilight 2000. Now, I want to give a big thank you to Free League Publishing for sending me this free review copy of Twilight 2000 to check out and play and review. Thank you very much, Free League Publishing. I also want to say, before I get into this review, that I've got a ton of links in the description down below that you can check out at your leisure. There's a link to BoardGameCaptain.com, which is a great hub for all things Board Game Captain. There's also a link to my Teespring store. If you'd like to get yourself some cool Board Game Captain merch, t-shirts, mugs, etc., like this t-shirt I'm wearing right now that says, "I drink and I game, it's what I do," and it has a D20 and a mug of beer on it, that is available there along with many others. There's also a link to my Patreon if you're in a position to and would like to support my channel. All right, so Twilight 2000. This was a role-playing game that was originally released way back in the 80s, I believe. Now, it was meant to be the apocalypse happening, the World War III happening, that we thought was going to happen between the USSR and the United States. World War III would happen and cause kind of a breakdown of society worldwide. This is a game kind of based around that happening. It's not, the storyline is not post-apocalyptic. It's actually, it's happening during the end of modern society as things are beginning to break down. You're literally in the middle of it, which is a very interesting, kind of a unique sort of setting and take, because usually games like this will be in the aftermath. You'll really be playing post the end of the world, not during it while the events are happening. But the idea is that the Cold War leads up to eventually open warfare in Poland and Sweden. Those battles lead to a limited nuclear exchange and eventually basically the collapse of both the United States and Soviet governments to actually have any kind of power they can project really internationally. But the soldiers that they have left in these battlefields are abandoned there and are trying to still kind of fight out the tail end of this Third World War. At least in the European theater, there's hints that there's maybe other conflicts going on in other parts of the world as well. And they're fighting out while people are starving. Disease is rampant. There are areas that are irradiated because of the nuclear bombs. The winter right after the nuclear exchange is a really severe one because of it being made worse by all of the dust and debris kicked up by the nuclear weapons. Yeah, this is all covered in the books. And then this is the world you will be playing in. Usually either playing as a soldier from the United States, a soldier from the local country, and so either Poland or Sweden, because those are the main locations that you're meant to play in, though you can actually play in other countries if you want to, or a local that has kind of joined up with the force or been conscripted due to the events going on. Sorry, let's have a look at what comes in the box when you get this box for Twilight 2000. So I'm going to open it up here, and the first thing we've got here is some cards. Now the cards, it's actually two decks of cards. You have a initiative deck, which is mainly just rules-wise for keeping track of initiative for conflict. They have numbers between 1 and 10. You're able to randomly deal these out. If you totally get the drop on somebody, though, you are able to automatically take the highest initiative cards from here rather than having to have one randomly dealt to you when doing initiative. The next deck of cards these are encounter cards. These are really, really cool. I'm going to show a few of these to the camera here. I like these a lot because there are encounter tables in the book for random things to run into, all sorts of interesting things you can encounter, and instructions on how to use a regular deck of cards to, in conjunction with the table, have the encounters, but this deck speeds that up. This is a deck of the actual encounters with the full rules for them printed on the cards. The next thing we've got here is a little games catalog from Free League Publishing. I love when companies include these. I know they're not necessary anymore because everything's always online, but this fills a little nostalgic niche for me, which, especially for a game like this that is based on a retro futuristic idea of a war that didn't happen. This is really cool. I get a kick out of this. This brings me back to my childhood and opening role-playing games and board games back then. Next, we have a bunch of custom dice. Now, it is totally possible to play this game without custom dice, but these do make it easier. As you can see, they have symbols on them as well as numbers, and there is this die, rather than having to use a regular six-sided die with a table, lets you know where someone has been hit, like if they've been hit in the legs, or the head, or let's find the torso hit here. Oh, there's the torso hit. Because where you hit matters in this game, especially since armor might be different in different body parts, because if you have body armor but it's not covering your legs or arms, it's going to matter if you get shot in the legs or arms versus the chest, where your flak jacket might actually take the hit for you. Next, we've got a bunch of hex mats. The battles in this game play out very much like they are influenced by the kind of old school hex-based war strategy games, which is really, really cool. So here you can see some double-sided hex maps for battles. There's quite a few of these in here. These are really cool and very useful for the game system. I like these quite a bit. And as you can see, you could put these together to make larger maps, because with the roads and the rivers, there are different ways these could be fitted together. And here we have some now with more city-like environments, buildings and ruined streets and such. These are freaking great. These are absolutely great. Here we've got some character sheets. Of course, you could just Xerox these. You don't have to waste the character sheets themselves. But the character sheets are really nicely done. They're very easy to read and understand. And generally speaking, this, for as adult and advanced as a world this is in, the rules and how you actually play are pretty easy to understand. Not the lightest role-playing game I've ever played, but it's only really moderate difficulty at best in regard to the difficulty to play. Here we have some bigger mats, again, bigger hex mats. These ones fold out. Again, this is one of those box sets, and I'm going to be talking more about this during the review, but this is one of those box sets where it literally comes with everything you need to play the game, and that in itself is amazing and awesome. Now, this final hex map is for wandering around either Sweden or Poland. As you can see here, it is a giant, absolutely gigantic hex map of the countryside in both countries. And this is very important when going freeform and exploring, because this is meant to be a bit of a freeform kind of sandbox role-playing game. If you played the fantasy role-playing game Forbidden Lands from Free League, you know what the concept is like. It's got a similar kind of feel to that, to this game. Next, we have a couple of dossiers here. These are basically mission briefs on the final mission before the United States left its soldiers to their own devices because they could no longer support them over there in the European theater of World War III. And then finally, we have two books in this box set. We have the Twilight 2000 Player's Manual and the Referee's Manual, which is, of course, a Game Master's Guide. So I'm going to quickly go through like what kind of stuff we have in here. But yeah, the artwork is beautiful. These are soft cover books, and absolutely gorgeous looking, full color printing. You're meant to read the player's manual first because it mainly gives you actually the rules, a little bit of the setting, but primarily it teaches you how to play the game. So the first chapter is You're on Your Own Now, where it kind of talks about how you're going to role play and deciding whether you're going to play in Sweden or Poland or somewhere else, how to make a party, etc. Then you get into the player characters and specifically how to do character creation in this game, including the various archetypes. You've got the civilian, the grunt, the gunner, the kid, the mechanic, the medic, the officer, the operator, and the spook. If you want to be a rogue CIA agent that has no way of getting home. They have lots of information in here on military careers as well as ranks for both the US and Soviets. All sorts of general background information that'll be good for developing your characters. And then you've got the skills and specialties. So the basic way that this system works, and this is very interesting, I actually rather like this system. So it's got some similarities to Free League's main system, the Year Zero engine, but it's not the same. You have attributes and you have skills, and you do have to use a combination of the two to those two stats to figure out what you're going to roll. So that is similar, but it's not done quite the same way. So your attribute will be listed between giving you a D6 to a D12, and so will your skill. And what you do is you figure out if you're getting what size die you're getting from your attribute, what size die you're getting from your skill. You pick up those two dice and you roll them. Now, rolling a 6 or better on either of them gives you 1 success. Rolling a 10 or better on either of them gives you 2 successes. There are some things that can modify you one way or the other, like if someone's helping you, that could modify you positively, or if the weather is really bad while you're trying to do something and the rain's getting in your eyes, that can modify you negatively. Things that modify you positively let you increase the size of one of your dice by 1 type. Again, it's from a D6 to a D12, while things that are bad modify it down lower. And you're looking to get at least 1 success under normal circumstances, whereas extra successes can let you do extra things. Now, as we move on past the skills chapter, the next chapter is combat and damage. And the skills for combat and damage work the same, except that also weapons have this thing called a critical threshold, which is really kind of neat. So if you succeed and beat the critical threshold and pierce their armor, you can also roll for critical hits. And critical hits, now this game can be deadly. So with the crits, every crit on the body or the head has a 1 in 10 chance of an instant kill effect on a player character, or an enemy or NPC for that matter. But because this is a game where you're going to want to have backup player characters ready, because this system is meant to be gritty and real and can be very deadly. In fact, this might be one of the deadliest systems in modern role-playing games I've ever seen. There were some like this, of course, again, this is a revamp of one from the 80s. There were a lot back then that were usually very deadly. But modern systems have kind of moved away from that, but this is kind of an interesting harkening back to that, but still with a more modern, updated system, because the system itself is fairly streamlined and fairly easy, and battle in a very cool way does play out, again, kind of like a war strategy game, which is really awesome. So the next chapter, we're dealing with weapons, vehicles, and gear, and this has an amazing amount of equipment, everything from improvised and jury-rigged weapons like zip guns and pipe guns on up through military-grade weapons and vehicles. There are tanks, there are APCs, Humvees, Jeeps, you have civilian vehicles like trucks and motorcycles. This is really cool. You are not likely to start with a tank, but it is possible. There's a table you roll on for your starting vehicle. It's much more likely to start with something like a Jeep or a Humvee, but you could start with a tank. And even if you don't, though, there is definitely the possibility to get a tank either through salvage or combat as you go. The next chapter is on travel and specifically how that works, going through the open map and running into random encounters, etc. And that basically rounds out the entirety of the player's manual. Now, when you get into the referee's manual, it deals mostly a lot more with running the game and also the storyline for the world. So the first chapter is the world at war, and this is going to give you a timeline of where things diverged from our timeline and how World War III started. It's also going to let you know where all the forces are left after World War III kind of ground into a guerrilla ground war, which is what it is now, with no resupplying from either side. It lets you know what's going on in the other parts of the world. It lets you know how you're going to be a game master and what you need to do in the next chapter there, as well as how to run encounters, how to roll for random encounters. Now, the random encounters are meant to do from card draws from a card deck, but with the box set, of course, you have the encounter deck, which has the full descriptions of the encounters on it, so you actually don't need to reference back to this part of the book. It has tables for rumors that your players could hear. Then it has listings of all the factions and forces and what military units are still active in various areas where they are from either side of the conflict. Then we have scenario sites in the back of this book, which these are like fully fleshed out adventures, locations, NPCs, etc. There's a few of them in there. They're really cool, and you can drop those into the campaign wherever you want. Now, it encourages you to try to make reoccurring NPCs and villains by chaining together the various encounters as well as the scenario sites by remaking some of the NPCs in them. Instead of being, generic Russian officer A, now it is Russian officer Lazarev, and you already ran into him before. You guys remember Russian officer Lazarev? He killed Geordi, and all the players are going to remember that, and that makes it more impactful. This is amazing. So the game system is really, really good and really, really cool, if lethal, and you need to be aware of that. The world is very interesting, if dour, because it is a downer of a gritty, apocalyptic kind of world, and you have to be aware of what kind of game you're playing. You want there to be backup characters. You want to have an understanding with your players that you're going to be playing a very gritty, dark future. But this box set, if you are going to be playing that, if you have everybody on board with playing Twilight 2000, this box set is absolutely amazing. It comes with everything you would ever need. They talk about in the books that they are planning on doing future products that give a more in-depth look at other parts of the world, but generally speaking, if you are playing in either Poland or Sweden as your theater of operation for this game, you've got everything you will ever need for this game right here in this box set, which is why I have to give the Twilight 2000 box set 9 out of 10 stars. This is fantastic. I really like this. This is great. Grim, dark, vicious, brutal, cutthroat. Wow. But still fairly easy to learn and easy to play. Yeah, definitely a really, really fantastic product from Free League Publishing. If the things I talked about sound cool to you, I cannot recommend this enough. Twilight 2000, 9 stars out of 10. Let me know if you have checked this out and what you think. If you enjoyed this review of a role-playing game product, be sure to give it a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.